My wife took everything in the divorce. The prenup had one clause she overlooked. The sunsets over Newport were a different kind of wealth. Not the kind measured in stock portfolios or yacht lengths, though we had those too, but a liquid gold that poured across Narragansett Bay and gilded the manicured lawns of our Georgian colonial. From my study, I'd watch it paint the harbor, the faint clang of rigging from the marina a peaceful soundtrack to a life I'd spent 25 years building. I was James Alden, of Alden Capital. My world was private equity, a landscape of leveraged buyouts and calculated risks. My greatest investment, I'd believed for 22 years, was my marriage to Serena. We'd met in business school. She was Serena Westbrook then, all ambition and sharp wit, a future marketing mogul. I was the quiet strategist from old Newport money, tempered by my father's near bankruptcy, driven by a fear of losing it all again. We were a power merger. Her social brilliance and my financial acumen built Alden Capital into a quiet powerhouse. We had the homes, the memberships, the 2 children now at Stanford and Brown, and the seamless, public partnership that was itself a valuable asset. The prenuptial agreement was my father's dying insistence. Love is a flame, James, he'd rasped from his hospital bed, his own fortune lost to a bad merger and a faithless partner. It needs walls to keep it from burning the house down. Build walls. Serena had signed it without hesitation, a gleam in her eye. It was modern, fair. In a no-fault divorce, assets acquired during marriage would be split 50-50ths. The family trust, my rebuilt inheritance, remained mine. There was, however, a single, anachronistic clause my father's lawyer had insisted upon, a relic of a less enlightened age, Section 7.2, dissolution due to marital fault. It stated that in the event of dissolution due to proven infidelity by either party, the offending party would forfeit all claims to spousal support and would be required to repay the injured party for 50% of the marital assets already distributed to them. Her lawyer at the time had scoffed. Marital fault clauses are notoriously hard to enforce, James. Courts prefer no fault. Consider it a sentimental gesture. For 22 years, it was a forgotten paragraph in a filed-away document. Until the cracks appeared. It started with the vitality. Serena, at 47, had always been vibrant, but this was different. A new, restless energy. She took up hot yoga, then Pilates, then hired a private trainer, Leo. Leo was everything I was not, 28, a sculpture of bronzed muscle, with a perpetually sun-bleached smile and the intellectual depth of a tide pool. He drove a modified Jeep with oversized tires and spoke in motivational poster platitudes. Serena began to glow, but the light wasn't for me. It was a private sun, and Leo was its center. Her trips to the spot in Arizona grew longer. Her phone, once left casually on the kitchen island, now lived glued to her palm, face down. The scent of someone else's coconut-scented sunscreen lingered on her skin, undercutting her usual Chanel No. 5. I am a man who assesses risk for a living. I saw the pattern forming, a chart trending toward a cliff. The confrontation happened in the very study where I'd watched so many peaceful sunsets. She wore her yoga gear, her skin flushed from a session, not with me. "We need to talk, James," she said, not meeting my eyes, her gaze on a sailboat tacking across the bay. "About Leo?" I asked, my voice calm, the calm before the portfolio collapses. Her head snapped up, defiance flashing. "What about him?" "I know, Serena." She didn't deny it. The defiance turned to something colder, more calculating. "Then you know it's over. I haven't been happy for years. I feel dead here. Leo makes me feel alive." The cliché was like a pinprick. This wasn't about feeling dead, it was about fearing the approach of 50 and grabbing at a passing sparkler. "The children. Our life," I said, gesturing to the window, to the kingdom we'd built. "They're grown. And this life. She gave a short, bitter laugh. It's a beautiful museum, James. I'm tired of being a curator. I want an adventure. An adventure you can fund with half my assets, I stated, the cold reality settling in. She smiled then, a thin, victorious smile. Our assets. And yes, I've earned it. I played the wife, the hostess, the social lubricant for your deals. It's my turn. She had already seen a lawyer. A shark from Providence named Margot Vance, known for taking spouses to the cleaners. The divorce papers arrived 2 days later. They were a declaration of total war. She wanted the Newport house, the apartment in Manhattan, alimony of $40,000 a month, and a strict 50-50th split of all marital holdings, including the liquidated value of my stake in Alden Capital, which would force me to sell controlling interest. Her lawyer's cover letter was a masterpiece of condescension. Given the circumstances, Mr. Alden, we trust you will see the wisdom of a swift and equitable settlement. We are prepared to litigate aggressively should you choose to dispute the division of assets or the validity of the prenuptial agreement, which we note contains several unenforceable provisions, notably the antiquated falled clause. They thought the clause was a joke. A paper tiger. They were so confident, they'd drawn my attention to it themselves. I hired my own lawyer. Not a Newport blue blood, but a woman from Boston named Anya Petrova. She was in her 50s, with the tired eyes of a scholar and the relentless focus of a siege engineer. Her office was in Back Bay, walls lined with books, not yacht club plagues. The clause, I said, sliding the prenup across her desk. She read it, her lips moving silently. She looked up. They think it's unenforceable. Isn't it? In many states, yes. Rhode Island is, interesting. It has a strong public policy favoring freedom of contract. If the clause was entered into voluntarily, with full disclosure, and doesn't shock the conscience, a court might uphold it. Might is a very long way from will. Do you have proof of the infidelity? Not suspicions. Proof. I opened my briefcase. I laid out the private investigator's report. Photos of Serena and Leo leaving a boutique hotel in Mystic. Credit card receipts for dinners for two in Providence, charged when she told me she was at a charity board meeting. The piece de resistance, a recorded conversation, legal in our one-party consent state, where Serena told her sister, I know the prenup has that stupid cheating clause, but Margot says it's worthless. It's from the Stone Age. I'll get the house, the money, everything. James will be too embarrassed to fight. Anya listened to the recording, a faint smile touching her lips. She's arrogant. And her lawyer is lazy. They've tipped their hand. They're planning for a no-fault, 50-50th split, with alimony. They haven't prepared a defense against the clause at all. She steepled her fingers. Our strategy is simple. We do not mention the clause. We let them believe we're fighting over valuation of assets, over the definition of marital property. We let them spend their energy and their clients' money on that battle. We gather our evidence until it is irrefutable. And then, at the optimal moment, we invoke Section 7.2. And if the judge throws it out, then we're where we would have been anyway, a standard, brutal divorce. But if we win, James, we won't just win. We will reverse the flow of the entire river. The plan was set. I moved into the New York apartment. The divorce proceedings began, a slow, grinding dance of financial disclosures and depositions. Serena, through Margot Vance, was brutal. She demanded forensic accounting of Alden Capital going back 15 years. She argued my family trust had been commingled. She fought for every painting, every piece of jewelry. She played the wounded, neglected wife to the hilt in mediation, weeping about her sacrifices. My role, as directed by Anya, was to play the devastated but resigned husband. I conceded points. I fought only on the big-ticket items, always pulling back at the last minute, making it seem like I was conserving strength for a losing battle over money. I let Serena believe she was winning. I wanted her confidence to harden into certainty. The turning point was the temporary orders hearing. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Whitaker, granted Serena exclusive use of the Newport house and temporary spousal support of $30,000 a month. As we left the courtroom, Serena brushed past me, Leo waiting for her in the hall, his arms snaking possessively around her waist. She leaned in, her perfume a cloud of triumph. "Just sign over the house, James. It'll be easier. You can keep your little company." I said nothing. I just met Leo's smug gaze and gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Anya had seen it too. The enemy was fully committed, overextended, and looking the wrong way. The real battle was coming. And we had the one weapon they'd forgotten existed. The discovery phase was a trench war of paperwork, but Anya Petrova fought it like a covert operation. While Margot Vance's team bombarded us with requests for every email I'd ever sent about company dividends, Anya was building our case with the precision of a watchmaker. She hired not one, but two nationally recognized experts in contract law and forensic document analysis. Her mission: to build an incontrovertible argument that Section 7.2 was not only valid but should be applied with full force. The experts pored over the prenuptial agreement. They analyzed the signing process. The independent legal counsel Serena had, her father's lawyer, now deceased, the full financial disclosures exchanged. They prepared affidavits stating the clause was clear, unambiguous, and did not violate public policy in Rhode Island, citing a little-known 1998 state appellate court decision, Carrington v. Carrington, which had upheld a similar forfeiture clause in a postnuptial agreement. Simultaneously, our private investigator delivered the final, undeniable proof. High-definition video from a drone, operating legally in public airspace, showing Serena and Leo together for a week at a rented villa in Turks and Caicos, during a period she had claimed to be on a solo wellness retreat. The date stamps, the credit card receipts, the flight manifests. It was a chain of evidence that led directly to a conclusion of infidelity. Anya scheduled the motion hearing for a Friday. "They'll be tired, thinking about the weekend," she said. "Their guard will be down." The morning of the hearing, the Newport courtroom felt different. Serena arrived with Margot Vance, both radiating the confidence of imminent victory. Leo was in the gallery, wearing a suit that looked rented and uncomfortable. I sat beside Anya, who had a single, thin folder in front of her. Judge Whitaker took the bench. "We're here on Mr. Alden's motion for summary judgment," she said, peering at her docket with confusion. "This wasn't a motion about asset valuation." "Yes, Your Honor," Anya said, rising. Her voice was quiet but carried to every corner of the still room. "We move for summary judgment on the enforcement of Section 7.2 of the valid and binding prenuptial agreement executed by the parties, which governs the distribution of assets and support in the event of dissolution due to marital fault." A ripple went through the room. Margot Vance's head jerked up from her notes. Serena's confident smile froze, then slowly melted into confusion. "Marital fault?" Judge Whitaker asked, frowning. "This is a no-fault proceeding." "With respect, Your Honor, it is not," Anya said calmly. "The parties contractually agreed to an alternative. We have filed, under seal, a comprehensive evidentiary package demonstrating the respondent's serial infidelity, which directly triggered the marital breakdown." She handed a thick binder to the clerk. "This includes digital media, financial records, travel documents, and expert affidavits affirming the validity and enforceability of the clause under Rhode Island law, specifically Carrington." Margot Vance was on her feet. "Your Honor, this is a blatant ambush. This clause is a punitive, unenforceable relic. We object to its introduction at this late stage." "It is neither punitive nor a relic," Anya countered, her voice gaining a steely itch. It is a freely bargained for term. My client's father lost everything to a faithless spouse. He sought to protect his son. The respondent knew of the clause, ridiculed it privately, and proceeded with her extramarital relationship in willful disregard of her contractual obligations. Her own words, captured lawfully, indicate her understanding and her contempt for the agreement. Anya played a 30-second clip of Serena's voice. That stupid cheating clause. Margot says it's worthless. I'll get everything. The color drained from Serena's face. Leo shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Judge Whitaker held up a hand for silence. She spent 20 minutes reading the cover summary Anya had prepared. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear the hum of the lights. Finally, she looked up. Ms. Vance, your client was represented by counsel at the signing. Yes, and full financial disclosures were made. They were, but Your Honor, the public policy of Rhode Island also includes the enforcement of clear contractual terms, Judge Whitaker interrupted. I am familiar with Carrington. Mr. Alden, she said, turning to me. You seek enforcement of the clause. Full forfeiture of spousal support and repayment of half the marital assets already subject to temporary distribution. Yes, Your Honor, I said. She nodded slowly, then addressed Margot Vance. Your client's actions appear to have been willful and indirect contravention of a known contractual obligation. I am inclined to grant the motion. I will issue a written order by Monday. In the interim, all temporary spousal support payments are suspended. Ms. Vance, I suggest you counsel your client on the severe financial consequences she now faces. It wasn't a final judgment, but it was a rout. The judge's inclination was a death knell. As we stood to leave, Serena's composure shattered. You bastard, she hissed at me, tears of rage now, not performance. You planned this. You set me up. I looked at her, the woman I'd built a life with, now a stranger twisted by greed and consequence. No, Serena, I said, my voice low. You did. You just never read the fine print on your own escape plan. The written order came Monday. It was a masterpiece of judicial thunder. Judge Whitaker found the infidelity clear and convincing, the prenuptial agreement valid and controlling, and Section 7.2 a binding and enforceable contractual remedy. She ordered, all claims for permanent alimony were void. The temporary support paid to date, $180,000, was to be repaid to me within 30 days. The Newport house was deemed a marital asset whose value would be split. However, under the clause, Serena was ordered to repay me for 50% of her half, effectively meaning she would receive only 25% of its net value. All other assets already distributed or identified for distribution were subject to the same 50% repayment penalty to me. Serena wasn't just losing the fight. She was being ordered to give back the spoils of a war she thought she'd won. The financial tsunami hit Serena with the force of a nor'easter. The $180,000 in temporary support was gone, spent on Leo's business ventures, a failed supplement line, and their lavish trips. The Newport house, worth $4.2 million, had a $1.5 million mortgage. After sale costs and the mortgage, her 25% share yielded less than $500,000. From that, she had to pay me back for half of what she'd already been awarded in other assets, her share of investment accounts, the proceeds from the sold Manhattan apartment. The math was brutal and inescapable. She was left with barely $200,000 in cash. A fortune to most, a pittance to a woman who had budgeted for $40,000 a month in perpetuity. Leo's affection, it turned out, had a direct correlation to her spending. The week the house went on the market, he moved out, his Jeep loaded with the high-end fitness equipment she'd bought for their home gym. Rumor was he'd found a new client, a recently divorced biotech CEO in her 40s. Serena had to rent a small condo in a nondescript part of Providence. The social world of Newport closed to her like a sealed vault. She was no longer a tragic heroine, but a cautionary tale, the woman who got greedy and was broken by a paragraph. For me, the victory was quiet. The house sold to a young tech family. I kept the New York apartment, but found myself drawn back to Newport, to a smaller, modern harborfront condo with a view of the water. The kingdom was dismantled, but the view remained. Alden Capital stabilized. Without the pressure of a forced sale, I restructured, brought in a young, hungry partner, and found my passion for the work returning, purged of the need to fund a gilded cage. A year after the final decree, I was walking along the cliff walk, the fall air sharp and clean. I saw her. She was sitting on a bench, alone, looking out at the crashing waves. She looked older, thinner, the expensive highlights grown out. She wore a simple coat, not designer. Our eyes met. There was no hatred left, only a vast, empty exhaustion. She didn't approach. I didn't either. We were two survivors of the same shipwreck, one left clinging to a life raft she'd tried to sabotage, the other washed up on an unfamiliar but solid shore. I gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. After a moment, she returned it. Then I walked on, the wind at my back. The prenuptial agreement sat in my new safe, a single sheet of paper among others. That one clause, the one laughed at, dismissed, overlooked, had not just protected me. It had exposed a fundamental truth, that some contracts are about more than money. They are about the value of a promise, and the precise, measurable cost of breaking it. Serena hadn't just overlooked a clause, she'd underestimated the man who believed in the sanctity of the words on the page, and the father who knew exactly what kind of walls a flame needed. The sun set over the harbor, casting long, cool shadows. The silence in my new home was no longer the silence of absence, but of peace. The walls had held.